Well, with Sam Haynes, the CYC Vice Commodore and the most recent winner of the Rolex Sydney Hobart race. We'll get to that in a moment, Sam, but what's the Sam Haynes story? Where did sailing become part of your life?
Yeah, well, look, I wasn't really a sort of junior competitive sailor or anything like that, but we had various little boats over in Western Australia because I'm from Perth, sailed on the Swan River, and yeah, I just enjoyed it a lot. Had a bit of a connection to the AC back in because I lived in Fremantle. We had some friends which were involved in that, like the Longleys, Fitzhardings. So there was this sort of connection, and Prio being a small place, you know, we were intimately involved in the race, I suppose. Just as the '93 campaign, and then 83. I keep on saying,
yes.
and then and then my final year of university, and left uni in '86 and was in Freo for the defence, and kind of got whirlwind of sailing activity around the place. But mainly I was just sailing socially, did a little bit of sailing at Fremantle Sailing Club on keelboats, and then came to Sydney through various different reasons, and I bought a Cavalier 35 from Ian Box way back, and that's where I first started doing some ocean racing. I did some Pittwater Coffs type races. I did a few of those in that. Then I moved into a Sydney 39 CR, which was Nigel Holman, his estate. He'd passed away, unfortunately. I bought that boat, and I became connected with quite a few people. It was just sort of, you know, in the ocean racing scene.
And were you racing out of the CYC then, in those races, early days?
Yeah, so the Cavalier 35 came here, and I got that boat onto this marina and became a club member back then. And then the Sydney 39, all called Celestial. Ian Box's Cavalier was called that, and I've just kept the name ever since.
Okay. And all the while you were a vet, running building a big practice, I guess?
Yeah, the veterinary practice sort of gradually grew through various reasons. I established a few practices, and then also purchased some, came into partnerships in some, so that sort of was always bubbling along as a business. Took up a lot of my time, still does. But yeah, veterinary, I guess I'm managing the business, as well as I'm still working actually on the front line. I do a lot of surgery, so if your dog's knee gets a reconstruction at Sydney Animal Hospitals, then it's probably myself or one of my colleagues doing it.
And you offer mates rates for CYC members?
I give a little bit of a discount to some people under select particular circumstances.
Right, I'll be in touch. Okay. So Sam, when did, you did a lot of coastal races, as you said, the shorter races. When did the Hobart sort of get on the horizon for you, the Hobart race?
Yeah, I think when we had the Sydney 39, when I had that boat, we actually won a Bird Island race in that boat. And we were planning on doing a Hobart that year on it, but then I got interested in this Rogers 46, so we didn't continue in that Blue Water Point score. We got the Rogers 46 and brought that up to Hobart speed.
And where did you acquire that from?
That was an old Shogun, ex-Shogun, and it was down in Geelong at the time. So yeah, I just purchased it from a guy called Chook Fowler, and he actually took the Sydney 39. We did a trade, ended up with the Rogers 46, which is a really great boat.
Were you building up a crew as such? Did you have a core base of crew that you took from the smaller boat into the larger boat?
Yeah, it had a good continuity of crew. Guys like Ben DeCosta sailed with me all the way through. Colin Janes, Scott Francis. There was quite a few people which were moved through all the boats, and kept the whole program, going together. And then that boat, the Rogers 46, we actually did quite a lot of mods to that boat and started building it into a much better yacht. Didn't have a very good start. We had a couple of Hobarts. We actually didn't even make it in that boat.
I think your first one was 2010.
Yeah.
I think, from memory. Yeah.
And then we actually came third though after, I think it was on our third attempt in that boat. Got third place, and we also ended up winning the Blue Water Point score that year as well.
So it was a pretty good boat, obviously.
Yeah, it was. It became a really good boat. We won a Port Stephens in it as well, IRC regatta. But when it first came into my hands, it did need a lot of things done to it. It was a big wake-up call as to what you need to do to get a Grand Prix boat up and running.
And what did you do? What sort of major work did you do?
Yeah, it was a pin top main on those boats, so we went to a square top, so we had quite a lot of rig modification to do that, and deck hardware and so forth. It also had a retractable bowsprit, which was just leaked crazy. So much water came in through that thing. So that was made into a fixed sprit. The hull itself needed quite a lot of work to get that to be fair. It had a lot of issues in its manufacture, which is quite common with carbon boats, I think. So that was something else, which was quite a big project just to get the boat nice underneath. Yeah.
But to get a third in the Hobart race, I mean, a lot of people try to get places. It must have been a big thrill at the time to be a third on the podium.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was just it was back in the day when the prize giving was down at the Royal Yacht Club of Tasmania, and we were sort of in those rooms down there with all the trophies, and everyone crowded in, and lots of friends and family down there, and it was an awesome experience. It was
I think
great.
That's the year Victoire won it, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was the Victoire year.
So where did we go from the Rogers 46? Did you continue with that for a while?
I think I did 4 Hobarts in that boat. We did 4 campaigns, and then Rupert Henry was selling his TP52, which was one of the what now, and that boat. I decided, let's take a step up and buy that. And again, another boat which needed lots of things done to it, but TP52, great platform, and that took me into that next step up.
And how long did you race that TP52 for?
I think we did 4 Hobarts in that one as well. Slightly vague there. It was definitely at least 4. We had some good results and so forth in it. There was one year where it raced when I wasn't on board because I was injured. So maybe, but anyway, it's certainly a really good boat, that particular one. Now it's Smuggler.
Yes, yeah. And again, the crew, I mean, a bit of continuity there with the crew, or did you change a fair bit?
No, there was still a lot of continuity in the crew. In fact, some of the people that are on my crew now were sailing on the boat back then, like Lindsay Steed, for instance. There was still reasonably good consistency with who was on board and who was still just a Celestial type sailor. But some new people coming through as well. Adam Minter, for instance, he sort of joined us for those races.
So you took another step and got another TP52. What you thought you could do better with another boat? Obviously you did to get it, I guess. It's a big question, but why the next step?
It was just getting a more modern boat. I liked the 2011 type era of TP52s for offshore. Is this a little bit more advanced than the sort of 2006 TP52?
Now this is the boat you've got now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So it was originally BCOM, then it moved to New Zealand, and then Chris Dare had it as ambition for a period of time, and then I bought it off Chris Dare.
And it's a dual Rolex design?
Yeah. JV 2011, built by McConaughey. It just had some really nice features as well. It's got a really good rig on it. It's nice southern spars set up. But again, it's another boat that I've spent a lot of money and we've done a lot of work to develop. Did a lot of work to the rig. We've done a lot of work to, we put a new keel on it. We've done some modifications underwater, for its fin and its bulb, rudder, you name it, things like that.
And was that liaising with the dual Rolex office the whole time?
Yeah, JV have been really involved in it. So they've been really, involved in this boat ever since it was all for one. So it's gone through a lot of, advice. But also Southern Spars, Rig Pro, they've been very helpful as well, just keeping the boats tuned and working with North Sails. So, you sort of all the aspects of advice and management of the boat have been coordinated by the top level, in my view anyway.
Yeah. So you slowly built that program up, and I guess, the boat became fairly successful and then very successful.
Yeah.
Did you find that the difference between the previous TP and the current one much different?
Yeah. this one was quite a hard boat to sail. Like it felt harder to keep the boat in a groove, harder to sail than the previous TP52. We often were struggling with it to hold lanes, to hold height. We'd really had to learn how to tune the boat properly and sail it properly for it to perform. It wasn't an easy transition. I thought it'd be a lot easier. But rewarding obviously as well, because the boat's got a very strong corner of of a race to fight, which is downwind, reaching. It's reasonably good in some upwind conditions, but we've improved a lot of those things now. So now the boat's actually much more of an all-rounder, as you can see. So 21 Hobart, hard upwind race. The boat held up well. We didn't have breakages. The boat performed really well in that sense, but also in an upwind race, which is not its strong suit, the boat did really well.
Well, let's talk about that race. I mean, it got publicity for perhaps a lot of reasons. Some may be wrong, some may be right, but reflecting now, you're provisionally first and then you got relegated to second. How do you reflect now on that whole situation of that race?
Yeah, look, it'd be nice to say, we've moved on because of 2022 and it's easy to put that behind you. But I don't think it was, I look back at it and think it was an incredibly ugly period of time. I think a lot of things which happened then, extremely unfortunate and didn't, I don't think it was really very good for the sport. And also I felt, as I still kind of feel, that we didn't really have a chance. We didn't even know what we were up against until it was all sort of like, it was all over and there's nothing you can do. So yeah, it was very difficult for a lot of people, obviously particularly me, but there's a lot of people involved in that got hurt. I've as you know, been on the sailing committee for a long time here, and I'm very mindful of the rules and so forth, and I don't want to see boats not be consistent with the rules and the sailing instructions and so forth. But even with all of that, I felt that last year, that 2021 year was a circumstance which really shouldn't have happened that way.
Well, we move on, and I guess, it made you, keener, if that's the word, to do better and look for 2022. So how did your preparation go for the 22 race? I mean, you changed a bit of the crew and just got more determined, I guess. Yeah,
so we had a couple of really good crew additions. I suppose like you say, more determined. So, I mean, the 2022 race did start with the 21 result, but I actually was thinking, okay, look, maybe I'm not going to keep on going. I'm not really interested in the sport as much as I thought I would be. I had other things going on with J70. But then when I did decide to recommit, I really wanted to make sure we did as good a job as possible. I wanted to get the right people on board the boat. So yeah, Jack McCartney, who was sailing with me for a while, obviously did 21, pulled together a really good squad. I know Rob Greenhouse really well, so he's a friend, and he agreed to come. That was a big step forward. His planning and campaigning skills are, as good as his sailing skills. So he really took the program to another step forward. And we focused on lots of different things, but.
Well, let's talk about that, because, people who have been watching this will want to try and win a Hobart race. When did your preparation start for, say, the 22 race, the one that you won? Does it start in January that year, or how did you build up to the race?
Well, we probably were mainly licking wounds in January, but when we decided to do the Brisbane Gladstone race, that was a big, that was committing to offshore racing. And the race, which we're doing the Brisbane Gladstone this year, which is only 10 days away or so, that race helped set us up a lot for the 2022 Hobart because of the hard downwind running conditions that you can get in the B to G, and that also helped us get some good crew to come on the boat, to get put a crew together to start that process. So that race, Rob Greenhouse wasn't actually on the boat for that race, but we had a really, high level crew, a lot of really good guys on board there. You had like Luke Parkinson, Wendy Harmer, people like that. Drove the boat extremely hard, kept the thing lit the whole way, and then got confidence in the platform downwind in hard running. So that just gave us, I guess, a nice place to start off an ocean campaign, offshore racing. Again, in the boat, getting back into it. And, it exposed a lot of weaknesses as well, which we then took to work on. So things like just even the bilge pumps, the waterproofing of the boat, which are things which you'd expect a boat to be, there's already done a couple of Hobarts and everything to have going well, but there was always incremental improvements, just little steps forward. And everything, counted to make the boat a faster boat for a Hobart race. And for me, we love the Blue Water point score. We do all the races involved in that. They're definitely very important in lead up. They're really important in lead up. There's so many things which those races bring out, different ways of sailing, different modes. And the crew particularly, but it's all aiming at, Boxing Day for us. So the other thing, we really worked on trying to get a good crew together, and then when we did have the crew, we trained as a crew. So we did as many races together as we could, but we also did training sessions together, particularly doing things to make sure our navigation, our polars, our sail crossovers, the sails that we take, all those layers of data that you need.
Yeah, and so take us into the race. Obviously, you get the weather early out from the race, 4 or 5 days out. It starts to formulate into a plan.
Yeah.
What was your plan? Did you?
Yes, we had a couple of meteorologists working with us to help plan the race. We had Roger Badham, of course, which a lot of people do. We also had Chris Bedford. Yeah. He was probably our main source of information. So we had sessions with him, which we actually started quite far out from the race. I think a week out from the race, we had a daily session with him, obviously just to look at how the weather was evolving, and mainly oceanography as well. He did a lot of help, a lot of info on current, which was important in this race. So we started to sort of plan that and get an idea about what sails would be on the boat, and how we were going to manage the actual course as it evolved. And you know what it's like, you've done so many of these races, you know, one day it's like, oh my God, this front's going to be coming through on the second day, and it's going to, oh no, it's been delayed. When is it going to come through? Now, you always have all of that going on until you're virtually off the dock and you've got a weather forecast. You just sort of like, hopefully it stays with this one.
Thank heavens we can go sailing now.
Yeah. A lot of prep with that. We did prep on food and things like that too. You know, just housekeeping of the boat, who was going to do what role on board to keep the boat as.
And I guess, looking at the weather a few days out, I think all the pundits agreed that it was going to be a TP52 race. And there was yourself in Celestial, Guaylo, Caro and Warrior One seemed to be the top four picks. Going into the race, I mean, obviously you kept an eye on them, but was it a case of, that you stayed with them, or you did your own thing, or how did you balance all that out?
Yeah, during the race, that's a good, interesting question, because we knew, obviously we were very close to those boats, and they were doing extremely well, and that meant that we knew we were too. But we did stick to our game plan as well. So I think if you look at the Green Cape, there's a sort of an angle where everyone comes in, and then everyone jibes at various different points there, for instance, and we picked where we wanted to jibe, and that's where we jibed, for instance, at that time. And Guaylo were the last one, I think, to change, and you could see then later, I think it was for instance, pretty sure it was Warrior 1, took another dig back in, and again, we were with the other three and none of us covered them. They were probably coming back to join us. So we really just kept to our game plan the whole way down. But then again, also, we weren't hugely separated from the boats which were all going to finish well.